Perfect. Okay, well, welcome back. Let's finish the presentation. Um, okay, so we so far we have covered. First, we learned from you all the methods that you're using today. I hope that you all learn from each other. I was really happy to see that somebody asked about what the software you're using, because that's the reason why we're doing this, because and not only we're all gonna learn from each other. So it's an I think it's critical for us to share those tools, to share the knowledge, and to that way we'll make sure that everybody is on the same page and we are consistent across the state. That is important for us to do. So um, the other thing that we did, we look at a little bit, a little section about, what does it mean to be inclusive? What does it mean to be, what's equity versus inclusion? What is justice? What is like full participation? All of those things that we kind of try to cover, and some experiences, we share some experiences. Finally, we went through the barriers, you know, digital, community barriers. I mean, all kinds of different things. So the what we're gonna cover now, it's what in our own experience, what has been a formula that has helped us get to the next step and start using what we learned about the targeted universalism to focus on. We still have a long way to go in terms of learning more about other communities, because if you notice, in my case, I engage a lot with the Latino community. We did a project in Aurora, and we had to translate all of our flyers to 7 different languages in Aurora, one of the most diverse places in the country. So it was an eye opener to interact with people from Senegal, migrants from Senegal that came to this reunion, and they spoke French. So we had to have somebody that understood their language, and it was fun, an eye opener for everybody in there. So anyway, that's kind of something that we have learned along the way, and we're gonna do a little bit of exploration on that topic. So we're gonna start with this. All right. So based on our experience, one of the things that we have done is the engagement, the pathway, engagement pathway that we have done, uh, and we have kind of tried to adapt that to the occasion. We always try to improve on it, but this is kind of what has worked with us. We started with the community and stakeholder research. So when we go to a new place, we look at the community as a whole. We understand. We already have an idea what kind of demographics we want to focus on. And what we do is we come to that community and we do the research on that community, and on top of that, on the stakeholders. So whether it is our experience with Grand Junction, we started exploring what's the best. So since in our case for Grand Junction, big portion of the efforts are going targeting the Latino community there. We look at what's the radio station that everybody listens to. What are the local nonprofit organizations? Those are some of the stakeholders that we're talking about. Understanding who do they work with. Every single community has their favorite food, ethnic or local food that they go to, their favorite bar where that they attend, their favorite local nonprofit organization that they work with. I mean, there is, depending on what we're looking for, there is all kinds of different stakeholders. We need to understand the landscape, the community, and the landscape of stakeholders. This next step, we try to identify the priority audiences, as we mentioned in targeted universalism. Now we're trying to see, this is the universe as a whole. Now, what are we trying to target on? Number three, we identify and create partnerships. This is critical because we don't know the community that we're coming into, on, but there is people and there is organizations that work with that community and they understand that community. So finding those organizations is critical to build those partnerships. And if you approach them the right way, they're going to work with you. And also consider the fact that sometimes, and most of the times, they need compensation. You need to provide compensation for them because they're going to be spending their time, and nonprofit organizations do not operate on thin air. They need something to be able to operate. So it's critical to do that. And then after that, as once we understand and we're working with all these groups, we design a targeted marketing approach. What language are we going to use? What kind of media are we going to use? All of those things that have to be with marketing, we have to adapt to the targeted community that we're trying to focus on. Finally, when we accomplish all those steps, we can get an engaged community. One thing that is critical after that, if you achieve getting all these communities to participate, and you get uh, uh, an event an event that is very successful, okay, that's not the end of it. We need to go back again and keep those relationships, keep those stakeholders in the loop, so that we can do an iterative process. That way, you can, anytime you want to go back, you and explore a different community or work with a different community, you can always, work with those that you work with. Keep those relationships. They are important for you and for the program because they're going to be your partners for life. If you keep in touch with them, if you keep them in the loop, I think it makes a huge difference. Next time you go back to that town or to that area, you're going to have Alice there, and you're going to know better. You are going to have a better understanding of the landscape. So this formula has worked wonders for us everywhere we go. Okay, so how do we do this to begin with? Community and stakeholder research. Okay, we need to understand the demographics, the physical infrastructure, language spoken, all of those things that we need to consider to go into a community. You've basically developed a map of where are you trying to go? What is it that you're working with here? Community-based organizations, as we mentioned before, are critical for you. They know the community and they understand. Okay, there is so many things that we can tag to, so many organizations that we can tag to, uh, religious institutions, school districts. Sometimes we skip the school districts, but they have they work with the whole community, the whole town. As there is always members of the school district, that parents that have their children there. So the school districts are a good way to connect with the community. There are some school districts that have community liaisons, and if you get to those liaisons, they're assigned to a specific neighborhood where they work with people that need some extra help from the school district. Those are your allies, that people that you can talk to, and they'll be if you approach them the right way, they're going to work with you. Community service departments, nonprofits, and local businesses. As I mentioned before, find those places where everybody goes to eat or to hang out. That can be a good place to start. Local media outlets, radio, television. What is it? Is it maybe the local church? There is a big church, or the Catholic church where everybody goes on Sundays. Stop by, talk to the priest or to the padre or to the person that's in charge, and see if they can help you with some of that, reaching out to those communities that you're interested in reaching. And the map should include stakeholder names, roles, contact information, relevant connections. I mean, you're building your map of the things that you want to accomplish there. You're putting all these pieces together. Keep a database of those because, as I mentioned before, you're going to need them later on if you go back or whatever. And make sure you have dedicate some budget to compensate people that is helping you accomplish that. That is important. Uh, does anybody have any questions about these two slides that we just covered? Any comments? No, remember, I cannot see all your faces, so if you do have comments, please open your mic and let me know. Okay. All right, let's keep moving then. So once you start building your map, you start focusing on identifying your priority audiences, targeted universalism. Now you know the map, you know the landscape, you have your stakeholders, you have everything that you need. So now you start looking at geographic and demographic data. There is so many tools out there. One of the tools that we use in Aurora, and I don't know if you're familiarized with this tool, is the COSTAR data. The COSTAR data is a huge database, even bigger than the census data. They have That's the data that all the real estate agents use, and it has all kinds of data that when you crisscross the data from that and the census, you can come up with wonderful results. It's a lot of data available, so start looking at that data and try to get educate yourself about the region that you're gonna be going there. We put some of those the CEO transportation equity screening tool. Um, uh, all the different kinds of tools that you can use to go through this process, and you build that map that is telling you what the region looks like. Also, keep in mind that there is a lot of in terms of immigrants, for example, they're invisible to the system. Every time I see reports from the census, I asked. I was at a big summit 2 weeks ago, and this demographer and this statistician came to talk about demographics and things like that. At the end of the presentation, I asked them if they are considering the data. They were talking about population and how mobile they are, where they live and where they work, how what's the relationship between those things. And I asked them on one of the breaks, I asked them if they had any data about the migrant community. There is none. Okay, the census does not cover all the migrant communities. The census doesn't go into a mobile home park, and first of all, we're not gonna tell the government that we have 3 families living on that house, right? So there is a lot of invisible community members that are out there that are afraid to come out, and that's something that it's always missed by those statistics. So it's important to have people of color, indigenous people too. It's people that have disabilities. Some of the uh, disadvantaged communities that are out there. Uh, we try to put some of those bullets in here. Refugees and immigrants, older adults. There is a couple years ago, I was working with the library in Fort Collins, and they had a program for they call it Inbound, I think, the Inbound program, and that was focusing on older adults that could not drive anymore. They were living in their homes and they just didn't have access to library services. So they had a specific librarian assistant that will bring books to them. Another librarian that came to their living community and sat down with them and read, had a book club going with those people. They're also out of the system now. They're retired. They cannot go out. I mean, it's so many small demographics here and there that that we don't count on the census, or we don't know about, that we need to be aware of. Once you start looking at those maps and you find the places and you find who you want to work with, then you can use that stakeholder map to start contacting those individuals, the leaders. Even within a mobile home park, there is one or two people that everybody knows in that mobile home park. Try to identify that, and that's going to give you access to that community. Try to find the local store, as I mentioned before, or the most popular um, nonprofit organization. That's going to help you get in touch with that community once you identify them. Um, Once you do that, the focus here is to start building trust. Look at how can we mutually learn from each other? How can we work with this with these leaders to be able to, they get benefit, you get benefits, and we work together, and we look for opportunities to support them. Budget is important. So money, pay them for the time. They will be happy to work with you. And working together, you can learn about the priorities of the community. Working with the stakeholders, you can really learn a lot about that community. You can start tapping into local networks, identify some of the blind spots that we didn't think about when we came in here. They have a lot of insight into their community. So that is something that is critical to do. Okay, so you work in partnerships with local leaders, with these organizations will make a huge difference. Once you understand that, once you have partners, once you have your help established, and whoever is going to work with you, then you start a targeted marketing approach. That's when targeted universalists come back, and then they start designing specific strategies for that. Okay, you start communication channels. You have to select it based on your design. You start looking at those. What are the communication channels? What is the language that you need to use? What is the all the materials that are relevant to that? Sometimes it might be printing stuff, handouts, flyers at events. Sometimes might be WhatsApp groups. Some people prefer text, others prefer email. I mean, it just it's just a learning process, and you have to be flexible enough to keep going and try different methods. If one doesn't work, let's find another one. And let's keep trying, and until you find the one that is going to work for you, and you learn. So you kind of learn and go back and again, and try to seek input all the time, adapt. Once you get the feedback from the stakeholders, from the community, you adapt, and you keep building those relationships so that you can get the best solution to the problem that your community is facing. I think that has worked really good. So, and that's something that you can start moving towards doing. Some of the best practices that we have used in our process. Before I go into the best practices, does anybody have any comments? Any reflections? No, no reflections, no comments. Are we all experts now? Nobody's an expert today, so we're learning together here. So, okay, so that's kind of what we're talking about when you're trying to break into a community. Partnerships and local leaders, local communities, local organizations are your best ally to be able to accomplish that. Okay, best practices. Let's look into that. And one of the things that we learned along the years is that the compensation is really important. Okay, not only for your community member, for your community organizations. Okay, but also understand the community expertise. In a project that we did, a survey we did in Aurora, actually, and everywhere we go, when we are trying to seek input from the community, we always compensate them. Typically, we either use a Visa card, a $25 Visa card to everyone that wants to give us their input. So we always budget for that. We have money so that we can budget for that. And having that incentive, people will give you their feedback and their honest feedback. They're doing it for the money, of course, but they will spend the time to sit down with you. If you only ask them, I want to ask you a couple questions about this. They're always going to tell you no, or I don't have time, or I'm in a hurry. But if you come to them and say, you know what, I have a $20 certificate if you give me your feedback, that's a different story. So that is important. I remember when in Northern Colorado and Fort Collins we did a project. The city was doing a survey with about bike and rides, like the the different infrastructure they have for bikes around town, and they wanted to get feedback from the local Latino community. And they put this survey. They spent 3 weeks with the survey, and in 3 weeks they got 3 responses. Okay, so they contact us. We got together with the local leader from every single mobile home park where most of the Latino community lived. And what they did is we found those leaders and we say, okay, we're going to compensate people. We're going to compensate this group. We're going to pay this group so that they can go out to all those homes and talk to people about the survey and things like that. 3 weeks that they spent, they only got 3 responses. In 2 weeks, these community leaders went around and interviewed personally every single community members that they wanted to talk to, and they had 300 uh, uh, surveys back in Spanish in 2 weeks only. Three surveys to 300 surveys. That was a huge difference. So money will make those compensations will make a big difference for in participation and involvement, all of those things. So they got these leaders got compensated for the time, the planning time, their time they spent talking to people, and we always try to do that when we ask people to participate on a panel or something like that. We try to do that so that we can give them some compensation for their time. Okay, so part of the things that needs to be done is cash, gift cards, stipends, food. It's a big puller of when you offer food. A lot of people will come. Transportation support. We have paid people that don't have transportation. We pay the Uber to bring them into the meeting. Provide childcare. Some of those things. There's things that we can do that will make a huge difference on the attendance and the participation of community members to come to your presentations or your meetings. Something to think about. In terms of the communication, multilingual is always important. Okay. If you don't know the language, if you have a specific demographic that you want to talk to, we do have a list of different interpreters that you can hire. There are big organizations and small women-owned and small minority-owned businesses that do translation, interpretation, and all of that. So if you ever need somebody that speaks German, Arab, or any other language, we have a list, compile a list that you can hire, and then just bring that people there so that you can have that option for people to give you the feedback. Okay, not only an interpreter or a translator, but make sure that the materials and everything that you have is on the languages that you're looking at. Also, what we call, instead of a translation, we call transcreation is let's make it easy for people to understand the demographic you're targeting. Let's make it easy for them. Let's not use jargon. Let's not use. I work for government for many years, and they love acronyms. So they stop using the acronyms. Not everybody understands the acronyms, so that is important for you to kind of that makes a difference for people when they're looking at your documentation. Also, try to use a lot of images. I think is important. Sometimes, as I mentioned before, there's people that they don't know how to read or they're not proficient at reading. So images help a lot. Okay. Using visuals is important, and make sure that it's culturally relevant. All right. It's the demographic you're trying to target. It's important to have it appealing to them. It's also it will make a big difference when it comes down to their participation if you make it culturally relevant. Okay, let's go to the next slide, and the communication channels. That's another thing that you have to start looking into. We mentioned some of these before, but there's so many ways. Okay, sometimes just word of mouth works. Okay, so if you have a leader on this community and that community is very active in that community, and you identify that community member, they can do wonders for you by just word of mouth, like telling the neighbors, telling the family, telling their friends. I think it can work too. WhatsApp, text message, phone and video calls, television, radio. I mean, it depends on where you're going, and flyers sometimes, mail sometimes, regular mail. Some people have forgotten about that, so there is also a regular mail, not the email. Uh, In-person meetings. Try to go to if you're not having an event and you're thinking about going to this specific neighborhood or this area, this region, try to participate on events, table at events before your event, so that you can start communicating and start learning about the community. If you can, you don't even have to table, just attend those events, and so that you can understand a little more about the dynamics of that community you're trying to go to. So in-person meetings will help. Use your local city, your local county. They are very they have some programs that are working with this specific demographic. They're working with this specific group. So talk to them, and they'll be able to support you. Storytelling. It's when you do an event, when you go through this process, um, it's important that you have the storytelling. When one of the things that we mentioned before is experienced EV drivers. Okay, um, they can help you a lot if you bring them over and have the car there so that they can drive it too. So not only bring the cars, the demo cars, so that people can talk about their experience, but also bring cars so that they can they can participate on that. Now the storytelling is once you're doing something, make sure that you identify what are the EV drivers representing different cultural, racial, ethnic, gender. I mean, different things that focusing on the demographics that you're trying to target. Okay, partner with these drivers and make sure that they can talk about what you're trying to communicate to members. If I come as an experienced driver and talk to a community member and explain to them or answer all their questions, that's going to make a huge difference that if I bring the director of the Department of Transportation trying to explain this community member how EV driving works. And if they don't have the experience, it's not the same. They're going to be using jargon, technical jargon. They're going to be using all kinds of different things. They don't have the lived experience. So that is important in the community. The communication via digital media. Okay. We want to have, if you're using website, if you're using the, digital media, at least try to use tutorials and always have hands-on support. One thing that we have experienced is we can give somebody the link to an application to go through the process. That person is going to get frustrated 2 minutes after they go into the application because it's too complicated. They don't understand this, they don't understand that. So a video tutorial on YouTube will be helpful. That has worked with us before. We explain in different languages, let's say in French, we make a video, we put the subtitles in French, and we explain step by step. People can go and grab their phone, have their phone, if they have a computer and a phone, they can go and pause the video on that specific step, do a step-by-step process. Okay, how do I apply for this grant? All right, let's do a step-by-step, put it in here. Otherwise, you're gonna be answering now that question 1,000 times. So try to be creative and get some of those tools to work for you. And as we mentioned before, that doesn't work for everybody because the digital gap is a problem too. So if you have somebody that can come to the community and talk to them about how to do things, that's another way of doing it. Okay. Smartphone or phone, a cell phone, it's I will say we can easily say that 90% of community members have a cell phone. Whether it's a smartphone or not, that's a different story. But pretty much everybody uh, has access. If I'm an older adult in my household and I don't have a cell phone, my son, my daughter, my somebody in my family will have a cell phone. So there is uh, uh, we want to make sure that the information that we put out there is easily accessed by smartphone. Okay. And that you don't need the special applications that need to be used in a in a computer. Make sure that it's readable, that it's easy to access, that it's easy to see on a cell phone screen, small screen. Okay. If you do information on the site on the website, don't use Google Translate. Try to get your materials translated and use as much images as you can because that makes a huge difference. Okay, and follow the web content accessibility guidelines. As you know, there is an ADA compliant rules that you have to follow when it comes down to different disabilities and different aspects. Colorblind. I mean, it's like there is all kinds of different guides out there that you can use to make sure that you're covering those. Besides, for some organizations, it's required that you comply with all the ADA accessibility access to your information. So that's another thing that we can do. Events and meetings. Okay. Is something that is critical for you to understand is when you're doing an event, you're inviting community members for your event. Understand first what are the times and the locations that will be convenient for this group that you're focusing on. Um, I've been to some EV rides in northern Colorado and ride and drives, and I don't see any minorities there. First, a lot of the people is working at the time when they're making that in the middle of the week, middle of the day, and everybody, a lot of the community members that are not part of your typical EV driving population, they are working. They don't have time to come in the middle of the day. They have to ask for permission at the workplace. So that also location, make sure that it's close to local transportation. So if somebody doesn't have a car, doesn't have access, if it's within local transportation, there's some possibility that that person will come to your event. So also invite partner organizations to help navigate other even needs. We talk about in our presentation about the events that we're trying to help you organize here. We want to have people that can explain what the tax credits are, how you can qualify for those, if you're going to qualify. Banks need to be there on your events because they can explain to you how the process works. Do I qualify for a loan? That's an easy answer right there. So you might have happier participants if they can get some of those answers. Insurance is important. You have a new vehicle now, so your insurance it's gonna go up. You'll be surprised on how much insurance they're paying for their. I've seen some people that is paying $15 a month for one car insurance. Okay, so it's a good driver. It has multiple vehicles. Is insuring different things. $15 a month for a car. That's really low. Now you get a new car. You're gonna be paying $200, $150, $300 insurance. So that is critical for you to be able to communicate at those events, at those meetings with the people that is interested in learning about this. At the same time, they're learning that they're going to be saving money on gas consumption. They're going to be learning also that they're going to have some extra burdens in terms of, and they need to be able to ride there to understand the difference between having one and the other. What are they going to do? And they can make a more informed decision. When you're there and your events,
Jose Luis, I just
yes.
want to something that I notice and is some struggles that when we had COVID, people was not going to back to take the vaccine because all the clinics were at the time where they were working, or they were very, they were in hospitals like here in Lafayette. We have Kaiser Permanente, where office of policemen were outside at the entrance of the hospital. So it's very important to don't bring the the police, especially because some community members think that police and ICE, especially the undocumented community members, are the same. So be mindful that I know that sometimes in EV ride and drive events, we invite the police for safety or security. I understand that point, but if we are addressing, undocumented community members, they might feel not comfortable seeing police around your events. And I just wanted to mention that comment because it is what they were coming from community members on that status.
Yeah, thank you, Berenice. And also on top of that, if you have to have police at your event, make sure you ask them to come dressed not with uniform. They can. I've seen some police forces that have like the polo shirt. They do have their equipment. They don't come with a gun, but they do have khakis and a polo shirt. They don't bring their vest or things like that, or the big shining that thing that they put on their chest. Anyway, so that's the kind of thing that there's options. So um, that might scare away some of your participants in your group. So yeah, very important point to take. All right. Um, cultural, make it cultural. I think that that's a big bonus. If you can make your event cultural, by bringing what we talked about before, the face painting, the food trucks, that's if you're focusing on this community. If you're focusing on a different community, bring what they're interested in. Okay, so I don't know, maybe AJ can tell us about the rural communities out there. Is it big trucks? Of course. Is it what else can we do? It's you have to know your region and start making sure that you make it cultural appropriate to that community. Okay, so um, and include other relevant resources during your event. So not only bring the cars. If you advertise it as a EV event, EV ride and drive event, and that's it, you're gonna get a subset of the population you're targeting. If you say, okay, we're gonna have all these resources, we're gonna have energy use, financial help. We're going to have all these things. Then that might expand the number of participants that you're going to have. Mm. Any other comments? Any other insights here? Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's kind of overall the things that we're recommending you to think about when you're organizing your event. We do have some additional considerations considering the fact that demographics are different across the state, and and it's completely different. I'm gonna tell you an anecdote that happened to me. I went to with my daughter to a small town in Colorado, and she invited me because she was working for this company that wanted to participate on the parade. So she asked me if I could come and drive the car, the company car, so that she could be passing some gifts through the window to kids and things like that. So I came with her. I cannot tell you how uncomfortable I was when I got there. The full parade, the two sides of the parade. When we got there, there was probably when I parked, there was 50 Harley motorcycles. All these people with black leather and intimidating to me, of course, right? And I walked through that. I was very careful to walk through those motorcycles because I didn't want to, touch one. Uh, Everybody on that parade, all the males on that parade, they had guns on their belts, and some of them had automatic weapons hanging on their backs, and it was like That's a completely different environment that I'm used to. I felt during that parade, I felt really, really intimidating and really like out of place because I have never experienced something like that. It was all white people, of course, and it was not diversity. I guess I was the only one that was diverse from a diverse population there. But yeah, it was very intimidating to see that. So, you know, think about that, that was my experience there. So now you're looking at the demographic you're trying to target. Make sure that they don't feel the same way when you're going there. So anyway, I'm gonna go into these considerations. So I don't know, Berenice, you want to talk about these slides? Are, are you there, or you want me to cover this?
No, no, no. Can you just pass to the next slide?
Yeah, it's right there. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
So, friends, it's very important that what just Josely said, especially because some of you are in regions where we have indigenous communities or rural communities. Yeah, sure, Jenna. Thank you. No, no worries. So it's very important that especially we're going to have an event in Durango, and Isamar has mentioned some issues with indigenous communities, how we can bridge the gap, making sure that they feel welcome, and especially because they have the seventh generation concept and they have a respect for the land. So how we let them know, that what we're building, our strategies, EVs are helping the land to don't get deteriorated, that we're saving it for our future generations. So it's very important to have those connections in our flyers, in our messaging, making sure that, talking to the elders, that that are very important for these community groups are taken into account when we are trying to reach out. And especially if we have like a liaison like Isamar with the tribal communities, ask her for her input or how we can make it more cultural sensitive to their practices. So it's something that we are considering. And for example, in our event in Durango, we're trying to reach out these communities because we would like to have a ceremony, at the beginning that they gave that they give thanks to to the earth, to the land, just for putting together this amazing event. So it's something to consider. And I don't know if somebody you want to chime in with additional comments since you opened your camera.
Yeah, sure. It's important to focus in the tribal communities in the reservation, but also outside. So I can remember exactly the year when this happened, but there was the government motivated Native Americans to move to cities. So if you look at demographics, there's a lot of Native Americans in the metro area, and that's for the coaches that are focused in this specific area, maybe starting to do some research of how we can tap into those communities. And yeah, because they're pretty much scattered throughout the state, not only in the reservations, and sometimes it's like a small population, and that doesn't mean that we should ignore them, but just being aware that there's other indigenous communities throughout the state.
Exactly, and just that respect for the land, at least I something I'm learning that we have to be very mindful. Can you move to the next slide? And another communities, and especially in our area, the San Luis Valley, Alamosa, and that Western Slope, our rural communities that they don't have them. The comment I gave at the beginning that we need to make sure there is infrastructure for them, really to join this initiative because. Like in Wall County, we have also rural communities. They are encouraged people, to use public transportation, EVs. But if I don't have a charger near my mobile home park or things like that, I won't do it. And this, you know, anxiety will be there. And also be transparent because sometimes they think like, oh, these communities coming from metropolitan cities, they are coming here just to tell us how to do things, but they don't understand what is rural space and our type of living. So make sure that before you go there or try to engage, you immerse yourself in trying to attend an event or visit the area, um, or having something low key one-on-one conversation with community leaders before, arriving with all this initiative about EVs, especially talk about everything else before about your initiative at initial meetings. That really helps, like just to build relationship, especially because the time of living in rural communities is more slow to what we're used to, and maybe AJ and Millie can chime in here, giving more examples. And can we go to the next slide? And this is a definition that we touch from the beginning about those non-traditional excluded communities. And we have people that Jose Luis mentioned, his nephew, sorry, grandson, that he is tech savvy, he knows English, he was born here, their families, thanks to their hard work now, they have moderate and high incomes, but they don't feel represented in the EV market. And I always say this example: how many times we see a Latino man or Asian man in a Tesla advertising? We don't. So we also need to start making that marketing. And we saw it with Target, we saw it with Xfinity, State Farm. When I arrived to this country in 2016, I went to Target. I never saw Hispanic products. But now, if you go to Target, you see a whole aisle of Hispanic products because they know the Hispanic community has that purchasing power to the product. So we need to start thinking outside of the box and making this marketing that targets to this community, in this case the Latino community, but there are other underrepresented community groups that will be benefit, and we just haven't think of, because it's something that our brain is not wired to do, because we didn't grow up in that atmosphere, to play with those community members. I always remember this movie is called I believe The Lincoln Lawyer, where he is defending a African American person from jail, and this white lawyer tells the African American man, like, no, I'm your friend, I will help you. And the African American man told him, no, you are not my friend, because we don't spend time together. How many times your kids play with my kids? How many times you come to my events? No, don't call you are my friend or my collaborator if you don't really show genuine intention in connecting with me. So it's something to consider. And also, we have all this new technology, artificial intelligence, influencers, gamers, all these Gen Z community members that are becoming more diverse, because something that is happening in the demographics in Colorado, and I think nationwide, like the Anglo community is aging. They say that they are not having babies, at least this is what the demographers in Colorado are saying about the Anglo community. So that is aging, but our younger audiences, they are diversified. There are more brown people from diverse communities. So we need to take that into account, because we need to market our products, our initiatives to these younger generations, that if we don't include that, we're going to have workforce issues. We're going to have a lot of GDP, economic growth issues, because we're not going to see people buying this branding or this type of cars, but also no workforce development in those areas. So it's very important to see how we are marketing to these non-traditional excluded communities. Go to the next one, and just remind that we need to have a commitment to community, be genuine, like we really want to co-lead, to co-design, that we share the power to do things, and making clear how their input will be used, that we're not just going to a nightstand like AJ say, or Jen, I don't remember. No, we want to build longer relationships with community members. An example, for example, our community leaders in Grand Junction is called the Hispanic Affairs Projects. We are collaborating in this event, but we're already collaborating in other initiatives to teach mobile home parks about energy efficiency, water saving. So all these connections, if will be growing, and you need to keep in mind that this is a long-term relationship, that if once we finalize the event in June and they reach out to you in September, you need to answer, because you're having a commitment to the communities. Otherwise, once you lose the trust of the community, believe me, you can lose it forever, and it's very difficult to rebuild that connection. So it's something to keep in mind. Next slide, Jose Luis. And now, before going to the last activity, we're going to give you a 10-minute break more, because I know it was a lot of information, but please keep this in your mind, because we're going back to our previous activity and we're going to refine our strategies based on what you just have learned. So let's meet here at 2:41 to finalize our training. Thank you. And Jose Luis, can you pause the recording? Thank you. Thank you, Jose Luis. Now, as I told you, can you move to the next slide, Jose Luis? And can you stop sharing your screen? Yeah, now it's just a couple of us. Based on what you have learned, and if you can open your cameras, of course, based on what you have learned, think about the initial strategies that you share with us, like rural communities, people with disabilities, or the indigenous communities. How will you change your engagement strategies? What would you add new based on what you have learned today? And I will ask each one of you just to chime in. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're here all to learn, but we just want to gather these thoughts. AJ, would you mind starting?
Yeah, no problem. I would say definitely, I mean, I I still stand strong with what I had said before about, doing the in-person stuff, but then it's just making sure that that is the perfect strategy to, reach out to these communities and to have those one-on-one conversations to get the information that we need. But most of all, too, like we had mentioned, is to make sure that we uh, have more engagement, activities or something that is directly targeted to, like for me, it was the rural community. So have, yeah, those bigger trucks available for them to be seen, or else that specific information for them as well. Um, you know, I definitely also want to make sure that we are all aware of those, the barriers that we had talked about earlier as well, just because that is a big thing, and just being able to hear other people from the community, what barriers they hear about, or else maybe any ideas they have of how we can overcome those barriers. Even though we work in this industry, we still got to hear from the people. We still got to hear what other people are kind of thinking, of how they think they see a solution. So that's definitely one of the strong things that I intend to do and look forward to doing now moving forward.
Thank you, AJ. What about you, Millie?
For me, definitely finding more community-based organizations to work with and just showing up to community events just to meet and network with people. And also with a few like rural communities that I have worked with, a phone call goes like way farther than an email does. So just putting time aside for that, for more phone calls.
Thank you, Millie. What about you, Rebecca?
Well, I will say I come with the perspective of just being really fresh to this entire process, being new coach for less than 3 weeks. But I think that one of the things that I've questioned is how much energy we're spending towards EV adoption. And especially when you guys talked about it, like there's a lot of people where this isn't even on their radar. They're thinking about like, how do I pay for this? And how do I pay for my bills? And not, can I afford an EV? And so my question is, how you use, I love how you guys used community connectors or cultural connectors within different communities, and really addressing those questions of who is it that we should be engaging with, and is it and this is just my opinion from an outsider, because I'm not going to even say that someone within the community, is creating the infrastructure, like working with the different stakeholders to create the infrastructure prior to, I mean, all the time being able to educate people about EVs, but making sure that we're spending our energy on the infrastructure prior to that. And for me, I look at that as the first priority, or some people would say low hanging fruit. I would look at it as a first priority, because yeah, there's a huge barriers with the adoption of EVs, and where how much money they all these things that are right now, that's between the people that are the new adopters to getting the entire population engaged on the EV transition. So I'm sorry, that probably didn't exactly answer your question. It's just one of the thoughts that I have floating around in my head as I, begin this engagement process.
Yeah, and what will you do different based on what you have learned to engage indigenous communities?
Well, that's one thing that I kind of mentioned, is that community connector that you guys spoke of, the cultural
Yes,
connector
cultural
person.
broker.
To
Yeah.
me, that makes so much sense, because they have the information, they know the nuances of the community, they've built that trust, and or can build that trust a little bit more easily. So I think utilizing that is a huge, huge step to removing some initial barriers, at least.
Yeah, thank you. And make sure that you allocate the budget, because doing this type of work requires more time, more calls, more tests. You cannot imagine how many hours you have put just to reach out community leaders. So it's very important just to keep that on mind, that they won't answer to your emails right away. You need to build that trust. Thank you, Rebecca. Isamar, you wanted to add something?
So yeah, going back to what I mentioned earlier, so I don't know if everyone is familiar with the Maslow hierarchy of needs, and I was trying to look it up, but as I mentioned, some communities, some VI communities are in the very bottom trying to meet their basic needs, and it's difficult to ask them to go out and buy an EV. So for that community, I will focus on providing educational resources and awareness, but that doesn't mean that all the communities are in that level. So it depends who you're working on, because there's also Latinos like Berenice, and Jose Luis that are ready to make the transition, and we're not being targeted in the ads or whatever work it's being done. And sorry to put you on the spot.
It's okay, and stay tuned, because we did amazing video promos last weekend, and you will see sexy Latinos there. Just joking. Okay, thank you, Isamar, that's very important. That's why the target universalism aspect, because when you design something, again, to a person who is monolingual, lives in mobile home, undocumented, low income, when you design something to that person, for the others will be very easy to jump, buy an EV, etc. And the last one, but not least, Jenny.
Hi, I'm here. What was the question again? Sorry, I have a lot going on over here. Been trying to multitask.
That based on what Jose Luis and I have shared today, what will you change from your initial engagement strategies that you put together at the beginning on the initial activity?
As far as changing anything,
What would you add?
I just more in-depth, like building trust and building relationships. I think that we need to start going to site visits to the indigenous areas and actually setting up in-person meetings with community members in Ignacio and Toyac and on the Navajo reservation, in particular for the indigenous communities, and just starting to build those relationships. And I'm really curious to hear from Isamar, who she has as contacts already for the Ute Mountain Ute tribe. And I think that's where we have to start for us, and like I have initially with emails and phone calls, but having Becca as brand new on board and I've just ED since December, we just need to go and do our own road show and make some connections and start meeting everyone.
Exactly, Jenny. And just as I know that I was able to connect with the other Jennifer, so we might have a meeting with her soon.
Oh, good. All right.
Yes. So, and that's important, and not just to put here at the energy office on the spot, but since you took this training and after we develop these events together, you have and we produce success, we have a compelling case to ask the energy office or other funders like, hey, you gave us $1,000 this year. If we want to make it equitable, we need $5,000, something like that. But we need data, we need proof that these techniques work in order for, to get the buy-in from policymakers. Okay, let me share the screen again. Gosh, it was a long day. If you were in Erie, I will invite you for a happy hour after this. Okay, can you see my screen, Jose Luis?
Yes, you just have to put it on presenting mode.
Oh, sorry, chica. Thank you. Okay, amigos. Thank you for the discussion. I just wanted to ask you again, did you achieve your objectives that you mentioned during the ice break activity? Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thank you. Anything that you want to add before we go to next steps and mention more about events? Isamar, Millie, AJ, Rebecca, Jenny. We're good. Perfect. Okay, next steps. As you know, we are working with all of you to have this Ponte las Pilas roadshow. So we're going to be first in Durango, working with Jenny and Rebecca. That event is coming very nicely. Then we're gonna go up to Grand Junction, working with Mary and Dave on that event. And the community leader in Durango, sorry, I forgot to mention, is Compañeros and Beatriz Garcia. They are helping us to connect with food trucks, tax advisors, insurance. So we really appreciate that effort they are putting. Grand Junction, the Hispanic Affair projects that are helping us to connect with DJ, food trucks, and we just need to, hammer down some more vendors there. And then we're working with Grace and Jenna to put something in Aurora and Fort Collins and Miel and Isaac, Northern Colorado community-based organizations are helping us. So thank you for all of that. We're here to support you. Make sure you follow our social media because we're putting many updates there. And thank you for the weatherization assistance program to help us, with the sponsorship and promote these events. And this is our flyer for Durango. Jenny, I'm gonna send it to you after this meeting for you guys can start printing. Hopefully, we'll get more sponsors and more people to help us promote this. Everything is coming nicely. Those were my last words. Thank you very much. If you're interested in some of the reference that we mentioned, we're going to send you the slides so you can read further.